trolling Senator Elizabeth Warren as a snake, and in post after post, labeling Mayor Pete Buttigieg a rat. Two victims of this tell CNN they were so afraid of the online attacks they faced, they don't even want us to describe the circumstances for fear it would start up again. They both just questioned the politics of Bernie Sanders in a public setting, and their personal lives were exposed and attacked.
Well, just what Nick said, I think that's right. I mean, there is no Democratic establishment anymore. There's not even a Democratic Party anymore. The Democratic Party is a meaningless notion that the party, like the Republican Party, has been hollowed out and privatized to a large extent. There are Democratic elites, and so when we're talking about the Democratic establishment, we're really talking about a number of, a bunch of people that Nick also knows well, which really means Democratic donors.
This is the most important election in the history of our country.
This election is the most important in the modern history of this country.
The election in 2020, without hyperbole, is going to be the most important election this country has undergone in over 100 years. Not a joke.
This November's elections are more important than any I can remember in my lifetime, and that includes when I was on the ballot.
There are just 8 days left in what is the most important election of our lifetime.
Where did you guys come to a conclusion about why Clinton had such a hard time just owning that she did something wrong with the email server?
You know, I know that Russia and other forces would love us to have a debate. This is exactly what they want. They want us to have a debate about the internal structure of Hillary's campaign, what's true, what's not true. And I'm just not going to play that.
Yes, we came, we saw, we died.
I was the CIA director. We lied, we cheated, we stole. It's like we had entire training courses. It reminds you of the glory of the American experiment.
You know, people have said, if you look at, for example, the heat that ended up around the bend the knee of Colin Kaepernick. Mm-hmm. Many smart people have said it actually was not a thing. The Russian bots started taking out. Yes.
But I saw my mom. My mom is the strongest woman I know.
She should be running.
This is not about.
If you're like me, one of the millions suffering from pain caused by migraine, Nurtec ODT may help. It's the only medication that can treat a migraine when it strikes and prevent migraine attacks.
Trump and the Republicans lose on Tuesday, and if they lose badly, it's not going to be because of the left, whatever that means. It's not because of the 50 Antifa black mask guys who roam around the United States breaking windows and committing mayhem, most of whom are probably paid police informers.
Most of whom are probably paid police informers.
Rudy Giuliani, there's only three things he mentioned in a sentence, a noun and a verb and 9/11. I mean...
I'm going to try to get through this. Thank you for what you did 3 years ago today.
And I went to Wall Street in December of 2007, before the big crash that we had, and I basically said, cut it out.
And now I want to hand it over to the president of Ukraine, who has as much courage as he has determination. Ladies and gentlemen, President Putin. If we finally beat Medicare.
Thank you, President Biden.
This version of Biden, intellectually, analytically, is the best Biden ever.
He is sharp, intensely probing, and detail-oriented and focused.
They're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people that live there. And this is what's happening in our country.
I can't do it.
We'll do it live. Okay. We'll do it live. Fuck it. Do it live. I'll write it and we'll do it live. And thing sucks.
In 5, 4, 3.
Citizens of the internet, greetings. Welcome to another week of insanity in America and the world at large. Is it really insanity, though? Is it really insanity, or does it just look like insanity on our TV? That's how it always seems to me. As someone who kind of, here, let me bring this down just a little bit. As someone who dealt with the California wildfires and the media response to that, I realize how sensationalist the media can be. So, you know, I take it with a grain of salt, but that's what we're here for, right? That's what we're here to discuss. And sometimes I wonder if the empire isn't teetering on the brink. But then I remember that Donald Trump is president, and the last time he was president, they had everyone convinced that he was a secret Russian spy who was selling out the country to, you know, Russia. Meanwhile, there is a certain country that things are being sold out to, but it ain't Russia. I had someone, I love my intro unapologetically because of the clips it has in it. It has, you know, the opening clip in my intro is a clip from CNN about Bernie Sanders supporters harassing people. One person just questioning Bernie Sanders' policies got him attacked. So I had someone recently complain to me that it was self-absorbent for me to have such a long countdown intro. And I don't disagree, you know, but also it's how I warm up. I like I said, I really do like the clips, like the clip of Kamala Harris saying that the Colin Kaepernick thing, experts say Russia did it. It really wasn't a thing. It was Russia. You know, that it's good to remind yourself of the world we live in sometimes, or things that people have said, especially people that consider themselves serious candidates for elected office, the highest elected office. So there's a lot of stuff going on with the wars and the economy. And amidst all this, there's a gigantic media push to condemn people like Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, and Hasan Piker, of all people. It's a media push, and you know you're in serious business when the New York Times and right-wing influencers are on the same page when it comes to Candace Owens, Tucker Carlson, Hasan Piker. You know, you're in dangerous territory when all the Trump regime right-wing influencers are echoing the talking points of the New York Times. I will say that. But let's get started today with the most pressing, I was going to say pressing issue, but I kind of like merged those words together and I said pressing. So let's start today with the most pressing issue, which is the latest pig trough in modern American war piggery, the Iran war. And let's just go to one of my banger ass tweets here. Corporate media is finally reporting what we all knew on Twitter 6 weeks ago. I don't know if you saw this, but the mainstream press, if you could call them that, the corporate media is now allowed to report that many U.S. bases have been destroyed by Iranian missiles and drones. And as I said here, this is something most of us knew weeks ago, but somehow the conservatives who questioned the COVID narrative when Biden was in charge are now absolute faithful believers that the media tells the truth. And it's pretty mind-blowing. All they had to do was put a guy in a red tie at the top, and suddenly everything is 100% legit with these clowns. But let's get it started here by watching this major breaking news story that we all knew about 6 weeks ago, right here on Twitter.
Camp Buehring, Kuwait. American soldiers enjoying a karaoke night at one of the biggest U.S. military hubs in the Gulf. That was then. This is now. A once bustling American microcity in the desert, nearly empty and heavily damaged after a weeks-long barrage of Iranian missiles and drones. One of many U.S. military facilities in the oil-rich Arabian Peninsula, targeted by Iran even as the U.S. and Israel pummeled the Islamic Republic's large arsenal. So what impact have Iran's strikes had on America's footprint in the Middle East? A CNN investigation found evidence of unprecedented destruction. We can reveal that strikes damaged at least 16 U.S. installations across 8 countries. According to our analysis and sourcing, that's the majority of American military positions in the region, and some of them are virtually unusable now. A U.S. source familiar with the situation told us that they'd never seen anything like this at American bases, that these were rapid, targeted strikes using advanced technology. Iran's main targets? Multi-million-dollar aircraft, like this Boeing E-3 Sentry,
We knew
which
about
gave
this.
the U.S. a huge amount of visibility over the Gulf. It's out of production, and in today's money, it's worth nearly $500 million. Critical communications equipment. Look at these giant golf balls. They're known as radomes, and they protect satellite dishes vital for data transmission. In this base alone, Iran destroyed all but one of the radomes less than a month into the war. And crucially, radar systems. Highly sophisticated, expensive, difficult to replace, and critical to air defense. A second U.S. source, this one a congressional aide familiar with damage assessments, described these as the most cost-effective of the targets. Our radar systems, they said, are our most expensive and our most limited resource in the region. For U.S. allies in the region, there's a dilemma. In some ways, Iran's show of force makes the U.S.'s presence in the region even more necessary to Gulf security. But there's a new reality here, which is that U.S. military installations, previously seen as formidable fortresses, have turned into sitting targets. As a Saudi source told me, the war has shown Saudi Arabia, that's the U.S.'s longest-standing Arab ally, that the alliance with the U.S. cannot be exclusive, and it is not, in their words, impregnable. To get a sense of just how vulnerable U.S. facilities have become, have a look at this. It's the war room at Qatar's El Udeid Air Base, the theater command and control hub for U.S. air power across 21 nations. Struck not just once, but twice. And according to a U.S. source, causing significant damage. The base had been largely evacuated at this point, and no casualties were reported. Iran's visibility over its targets has never been clearer. In 2024, according to the Financial Times, Tehran secretly acquired a Chinese satellite, known as the TEE-01B, a massive upgrade from its own satellites. That means that Tehran went from looking at images of this quality to this. This is the first time America has fought an adversary with satellites that capture high-res imagery almost as detailed as its own. As the scale of the damage comes into focus, many will wonder whether America's presence, once a protected...
This is the first time America has fought an adversary that actually fights back. That's the problem. Because our military-industrial complex is a gigantic Ponzi scheme. I mean, I think that's pretty clear. We just throw literally trillions of dollars at it, and it gets beat by a country that's been sanctioned for 40 years. And that right there is why this news has been sat on and sat on and sat on. I wonder, I mean, I think that the public's so apathetic at this point that even if that news did get out, 6 weeks ago, like we all knew it, if we were paying attention to Twitter, no one would have done anything. The public would have just shrugged and gone, yeah, well, got to do what you got to do, I guess. Well, the backlash to this, especially in the press, has been pretty visible. And I want to show you this clip of Scott Jennings from CNN, the conservative guy, freaking out. So, wow, Scott Jennings blows up at Adam Mockler. Get your effing hand out of my face. Mockler, we all know Scott Jennings is. Let's just watch the clip. I don't need to read it to you.
I mean, honestly, they have been at war with us for 47
We all
years.
know that Scott Jennings is more than happy to defend a war with a country that starts with the letters IRA that we are currently failing, that is going to put us trillions and trillions of dollars more in debt. I was only a few years old while you were in the administration defending prior endless wars. Now this war is failing.
8 weeks is endless to you?
Okay, you said it was going to be 4 to 6 weeks.
You have the attention span of a gnat? Is that
Homie,
what you
I
have?
debated you on TV 4 to 6 weeks ago, and you said we were weeks away from it. Now you're making condescending remarks because you can't defend the fact that this war is not going your way. Wait, one more time.
Not going your
name
way.
one political
Get your
concession.
fucking hand out of my
Name
face
one political
first.
concession.
whoa,
Honestly,
guys,
I'm not going to have this guy's hand in my face.
Everybody, hang tight.
So he gets all tough guy because the verbal reality is hitting home. Now, we'll get a little bit deeper into this later. This guy is from Midas Touch. And it's interesting that it takes a guy from Midas Touch to make this point and not an actual Democratic candidate or, anyone in the Senate or, any Democrat whatsoever. It's this like outside consulting firm who are absolute, never Trump grifters. But they were conservatives at one point. They're just taking liberal money. But they're obviously doing well because now they've got this guy out there on TV. So they're obviously making a lot of money. The grift is working. Sidebar, this coffee, it's so fucking delicious. It's high grade organic cream with honey and cinnamon. I brew with cinnamon. Try this if you've never tried this. Put a couple dashes of cinnamon in your coffee filter. If you brew your own coffee, just gives it a nice little edge, a little cinnamon, little hint of cinnamon. And then you don't have the little cinnamon floaties in your coffee. Anyway, total sidebar there. Back to Mr. Jennings here. This is who Scott Jennings is, in case you were unaware. Scott Jennings is an American conservative political strategist, commentator, and writer. During the George W. Bush administration, Jennings was appointed special assistant to the president and deputy director of political affairs. In February 2006, he had previously served as a staff member of Bush's presidential campaign in Kentucky 2000 and executive director of Bush's 2004 re-election campaign in New Mexico in 2004. Jennings is routinely cited as an advisor to Senator Mitch McConnell and was part of McConnell's campaigns for the U.S. Senate in 2002, 2008, and 2014. So this guy's doing God's work, clearly. He works for Mitch McConnell.
I've never seen anything like it. I've seen a lot of bad ones. I've gone to a lot of hurricanes, a lot of tornadoes. I've never seen anything like this. This is a bad one.
So Scott Jennings is, of course, a Bush-era neocon who was more than likely anti-Trump until recently when Trump started doing the wars that the neocons wanted him to do and that he said when he was running he would not do, and largely the reason he was elected is because of that. I don't know if you remember, like right before the election when there was this big media outrage because Liz Cheney said something about war and Trump said, I'd like to see her have guns pointed at her, something along those lines. I'm quoting him, of course, but the press went batshit with it. Oh my God, he said he wants to see guns pointed at poor Liz Cheney. She's just a little girl. She's just a little girl. How dare he say that? It's like that was the press backlash to that when clearly we know who Liz Cheney is, but I digress. Donald Harris, Kamala Trump, Donald J. Biden, Donald J. Obama, whatever you want to call him. He's now part of the pawn scum that he ran against. And of course, guys like Scott Jennings are on board with that. So they're on board with Trump now, and they will defend the things he's doing in the name of the establishment. And let's be honest, no one ever thought Trump was some kind of a moral guidepost, but he was one of the few people with the financial and, media prowess to take on the establishment and win. You have kind of the same dynamic right now with Dan Bilzerian in Florida because, of course, Dan Bilzerian is independently wealthy and doesn't like Randy Fine and is going to take him on in a race down there. But, you know, people, I think, misunderstand the rise of Trump. And there's this tendency to, you know, what's the word I'm looking for? Deride his followers, or, you know, and there are definitely cult Trump followers that are, you know, cult members that just hang on his every word and he can do no wrong to. But the vast majority of the conservative people I know that supported Trump, they did it out of necessity, out of a kind of like, hey, what else have we got type of thing, you know? And I tell this story all the time, but I'm going to tell it one more time. My cousin's husband, who was a big Trump supporter, when he and I got into it one night, and I said, listen, man, like, you know, Trump doesn't give a shit about you. He shits on a golden toilet in a Manhattan penthouse. And the guy goes, yeah, but he's not a Bush or a Clinton. And that's when it kind of struck me like, okay, these guys aren't stupid. He said, we know that Trump is a con man, but at least he's not part of the existing political class. And then I started to understand, okay, the establishment pushback against this guy is so harsh that there's clearly got to be something about him that is just, you know, untenable, or the bridge we can't cross. And, you know, now, based on a lot of the things that are going on, it's looking like the Midas touch people were correct all along, which they were not. But a broken clock's right eventually. And Trump's term just started too. That's the other thing that people forget. It hasn't even been a full year. Well, it has been a full year. I take that back. It's been one full year. It's only been one full year. I was getting a little ahead of myself there because he does get inaugurated in January 2025. So January 2026 was a full year. That aside, recently, Trump claimed he came out and said he was working on a deal with Iran. Now, whenever I hear these claims, I instantly think, oh, he's trying to manipulate the markets again. And we know he's full of shit, but Trump regime media is also trash. And so I thought today I would go to Al Jazeera for my Trump-Iran war update. So join me today as we watch a little Al Jazeera. Let me get it all queued up, and we'll speed it up just slightly. But let's see what they're saying about the current. And this is, you know, this is from, let me look at the date on this real quick. This is from like this morning, 5 hours ago. So this is fresh, some fresh news for you right here, folks.
In the Iran war with our guests. Joining me here in the studio in Doha is Abdullah Bandar Ali Taibi, an assistant professor of international affairs at Qatar University, and in the Iranian capital, Mustafa Kosheshem, a professor at the University of Applied Sciences in Tehran. Thank you to both of you professors for joining us on Al Jazeera.
So even I would argue that even Al Jazeera is biased towards Western interests because it's Qatari, and Qatar invests a lot of money. As Laura Loomer will tell you, they own Tucker Carlson. But let's just listen to what they have to say, because I feel like it's at least a little less in your face as U.S. regime, Trump regime media.
Professor Kosheshem, let me start with you in Tehran and this latest threat that's been issued by the IRGC, this ultimatum of 30 days. How should we read this, and what is the goal? I mean, what happens after 30 days if there is no deal with the Americans?
Hello, and thanks for having me again. Well, as a matter of fact, the gathering here in Tehran is that the United States is not serious about talks, and it remains adamant to any kind of offer that Iran might send. And Donald Trump insists on his maximalist demands that he wants 100% of everything. He is still talking about the very same things that he was demanding last year, before the start and after the end of the last war and this war. So he has not changed at all. The kind of literature that he's using shows that he's not serious about the talks. The equipment and the man forces that have been, transited into the region shows that.
Just quick aside here before we keep going here. Based on the footage that I showed you earlier from the earlier CNN report, that the footage that we all on social media saw 6 months ago and realized like the U.S. was getting a serious ass kicking base wise, that's now come to light. So my theory here with Trump, when you listen to him talk, he sounds completely disconnected from reality. He's like, well, we're winning so hard. They're completely dismantled. It's over. We won 6 times over. They have no military left. Like, they don't know who the leader is. I get this weird vibe that the president's like kind of being insulated by a certain cabal and fed information by them. And that's why he thinks, in order for him to keep his blessing on keeping this project going. And I had this is totally conspiracy theory territory. I just want to share this thought process I had with you, because this is how my imagination works. You look at like presidents and how quickly they tend to age when they get into the White House. And I'm sure a lot of that is due to stress. There's definitely scientific proof that stress makes your hair gray faster. Like you look at Obama versus like when he first went in, there's pictures of him like really green. And some of that's PR too. Also, but that aside, you look at the last 2 presidents like Biden and Trump, and I have to wonder if there's not some kind of like aging drug that speeds up aging, that they're like getting the presidents, like kind of coaxing them gently into dementia so that the aides can just pull all the levers and control the government around them, you know? And maybe I'm tripping on that. Anyway, let me let this play a little bit more. I got to go grab something. So
that they are preparing for resumption of war. So Iran believes that the United States is looking for a strategy that is recurrence of waves of war every several months or every year. So Iranians do not want that, and they want to establish durable, guaranteed peace. Therefore, they believe that there should be a red line for diplomatic efforts if Donald Trump remains adamant and doesn't do anything constructive towards the talks, because the sea blockade continues, and Iran needs also to take action in order to break off this sea blockade.
Professor Ali-Taibi, what's your reading of the situation? Is diplomacy making any progress at all?
Well, not really fully. I think both parties, the Americans and the Iranians, they're not actually serious about the talks. And we see them with the maximum pressure they put on each other at the moment. We see the Iranians submitting their 14 points to the U.S. And they just putting so much pressure on the U.S. with withdrawing troops from the region, and this is contradicting with the rights of these countries in the region to have their own relations with the U.S. and their security measures with the U.S. On the other side, you see the Americans, they want everything basically from the Iranians, and this is not actually going anywhere between both parties. And this is actually reminds us of the talks that took place before with the deal of 2015. That's actually started almost like years and years and years of talks that were secrets between the U.S., Iran, and France, Germany, and the rest. I think the Iranians want to have a prolonged talks. They want to extend this as long as possible. While the Americans, I don't think President Trump wants to wait. Okay. He wants the deal as soon as possible. And this is where actually we are hitting a very...
I also think that hopefully the Iranians are smart, because to me, if I were the Iranians, I would see this as the U.S. just buying time to rearm so they can attack them again. Now, there is a X factor at play here, and that X factor is Russia and China. Now, there's reports recently that, and I heard this through the Durin, that Putin basically called Trump and expressed to Trump that he needed to end the war, and that they were backing Iran, that Russia at least would be backing Iran for the foreseeable future. So that's, the Durin's pretty spot on with that. I'm not sure if that's exactly what was said or exactly what transpired, but I could imagine something of that nature happening. So as this guy's saying, he's like, the Iranians kind of want to have talks because they want to settle things. Trump wants to end it quick. The Americans are making unreasonable demands because they think they're winning. People like Trump live in a world where, despite the realities on the ground, Steve Jobs had this thing and they called it the reality distortion field. Because despite the realities of the surrounding world, he was so single-minded and so ADD and so focused on his goal, he would bend reality kind of to his liking. And I think Trump has that to some degree. He's one of those guys that is, yes, we're doing so great, everything's amazing. If you just say that enough, eventually you start to believe it, and it almost just kind of like becomes the thing. It's like that book, The Gift, or whatever the fucking book was a couple years ago that Oprah was shilling, that It's all about positive thinking. But there is real power to that. There's no doubt about it. And the way that the American media works, and I can't remember who I saw saying this the other day. It might have been Mearsheimer, one of those military experts. Maybe it was Larry Johnson. But they made the point that narrative is very important. And that's something that the United States has always been very good at, is forging a narrative, creating the narrative, pushing the narrative, making sure that everyone widely believes the narrative. That's definitely our strong point. I mean, look at history as a whole. Russia beat us into space engineering wise with Sputnik. There's just no denying that. But the USA beat them to the moon, didn't we, guys? Wink, wink, wink. I won't go any further with that. Back to the Iran report. Let's just hear a little bit more of this before we move to our next piece of data here.
Stagnation here. Period between both parties.
Professor Kosheshem, Professor Al-Taibi has described some of Iran's demands there as maximalist. Can you tell us more about these key demands in his latest proposal that was sent to the Americans, and which ones are non-negotiable for Tehran?
Maximalist. Iran's like, hey, we won the war, so we want some things. That's maximalist. You can't just have everything you want because you won the war. What the hell?
None of them is negotiable. Like Iran's enrichment right is not negotiable. Iranians believe that the United States has done whatever it could, including decades-long sanctions, and they failed to contain or to destroy the Iranian enrichment program. They also launched two wars so far using their most powerful bunker busters, GBU-57, and apparently and admittedly they have failed to strike Iran's reserves, enriched reserves. And also they believe that they are entitled to this right, and they have endured the pain and the problems, so they need to enjoy their right. On the other hand, another one is evacuation of the U.S. forces from the region. Yes, my colleague in Doha is right. The regional countries are free to go along with their security arrangements with anyone they want, but they shouldn't have allowed the United States to use their soil as a launchpad and platform to attack Iran.
Right, but as Professor Al-Taibi said, making such a demand is violating the sovereignty of these countries, isn't it?
So here's where Al Jazeera's Western viewpoint comes into play when the reporter chimes up here. They're platforming actual Arab voices because I think they kind of have to remain, to have a veneer of legitimacy, but this is where the lady pipes up like, hey, yeah, that's sovereign, blah, blah, blah. We really care about sovereignty, as you can tell by the way we just go into countries and do whatever the fuck we want.
No, it's not. Of course not. Because as I said, now it's hostile platform. Their territory is a hostile platform towards Iran. They've been killing Iranian civilians, leader, and many generals. On the other hand, when we say we want guaranteed durable peace, what do you think could be the mechanism? The UN Security Council? It's not working.
The Western chauvinist view. The point this guy is making is like, imagine if China or Russia was like lining up missiles at our border with like Mexico or Canada. Do you think we would do anything to Mexico or Canada? You fucking better believe it. We're the most belligerent fucking country on the planet. And so, especially after actual attacks were attempted to be launched at them via these bases surrounding their country, you can't disagree that they have a right to say like, hey, sorry, guys, we don't want a bunch of missile silos around our fucking country aimed at our goddamn country anymore. Can you blame them? I think not.
At all, because they have been using veto power so often and so much that it's not used as an instrument anymore. And Donald Trump shows no respect for international rules and regulations. So when we're talking about guarantees, he doesn't respect anything but force. So Iran needs to take the guarantees in its hand. One of them is evacuation of the U.S. forces from the region, especially now.
Completely ruined our credibility. And I don't necessarily think it was Trump. It was probably ruined before that. I mean, Trump was a big part of it, let's be honest. Obama did the JCPOA. That was kind of largely being honored. Trump came in, threw it out the window, got the straits closed down, and now he's flopping around trying to act like getting back to the original deal that he threw out the window would be like a huge win for America. That's where we're at with this war, to summarize. But let's move on from this, because I think this guy made a lot of good points. And I just want to show you this, how bad the denial is. And this is where the whole COVID thing comes into play, and the way that largely liberal voices enabled this kind of rhetoric and or normalized it. But this is a report from your boy Firkin here. Absolute panic in the White House. Donald Trump has a complete meltdown over the media accurately reporting that Iran is winning the war. He literally accuses the press of sedition for exposing the catastrophic military failures. The administration's narrative has collapsed. Not that it's collapsed, but hold on a sec. I just realized we got you on the stage here. Let's start this over.
Do it and take a negative vote and do it again and again like the Democrats do. They go again and again. The war power. I'm negotiating a deal with Iran. And every week, every 3 days, they put in a thing that the war should stop. And people ask me, how the hell do you negotiate like that? You're destroying them. Every day I read, think of it, we militarily decapitated the country. And every day I read about how well they're doing militarily.
See, okay, quick side point here, because this to me is an example of why you can't businessize the government, because Donald Trump is used to an environment where when he's doing a negotiation, none of it has to be publicly scrutinized. But now he's running the fucking largest country in the world, so it has to be publicly scrutinized. It's not just your company, bro. It's everyone's country. And I don't think that even registers with these people. They're such dick pigs. They're such self-interested dick pigs that they don't even consider the reality that they're speaking for us as a whole when they talk like this. Like this whole, what kind of an excuse is that? You can't report on the status, the actual realities of the war because we're negotiating? What kind of 12-year-old nonsense rationale is that?
I've never seen anything like it. I've seen a lot of bad ones. I've gone to a lot of hurricanes, a lot of tornadoes. I've never seen anything like this. This is a bad one.
So the thing that bothers me, I think, the most about this is the whole rationale for invading Iran, or what Israel's doing to these other countries, is that like, we are the good guys. We're the good freedom people who let everyone do as they please, and we gotta fucking go spread our democracy and freedom to the rest of the world because the rest of the world, they oppress people and they do these horrible things, and we're better than that. We're not better than that. And that whole facade has been shattered in the age of the internet. And that's why you're seeing this lack of the Obama era was glory days, I think, for these intelligence people. The early days of social media when you could just throw some shit on Facebook and topple a government, But now people are getting wise to it. And who knows how much of that is actually going to, like a wave, kind of shift back and splash in our faces. But another sign of desperation is just one last note here. They're running dolphin propaganda. They're getting desperate when they're running dolphin propaganda, because this is what they did back in the Russiagate era. They ran dolphin propaganda like this. Russia deploys trained dolphins at Black Sea Naval Base, satellite images show. So this is from Wednesday in April of 2022. During, I don't know, would that be considered the height of the Russiagate era? No, I'm sure there's stories before this. This was just that was actually during the Biden era. But, propaganda against Russia was, what's the date of this? April 22nd. So this was actually after they had invaded Ukraine. But there was even dolphin propaganda before this, I remember, during the Trump is a Russian spy era. So this is like just one of the more recent examples of dolphin propaganda. There was definitely pre-2022 military dolphin propaganda going on out here. But I want to show you how desperate the war pigs are getting when they're trotting out this dolphin shit. Here we are on Fox News recently with Jesse Waters, the voice of America. Let me get this on the screen for you because I'm definitely failing badly
already
here.
forced 45 ships to do a 180.
Hold on a sec. Let's
And now the
back that up a
Pentagon-
little bit. This is Fox News telling Americans that Iran is strapping suicide bombs to dolphins. Who believes this propaganda anymore? Touche, my good friend. How come the USA doesn't? If this dolphin thing is such a worthwhile pursuit for all these terrorist organizations in Russia, how come the USA doesn't have any? Do we have these kind of dolphins? What's going on here? Anyway, listen to Jesse here. Yours and my favorite news broadcaster.
Kamikaze dolphins. The Persians want to strap mines to dolphins to weaponize the strait. Don't tell PETA. These rogues are desperate.
Don't tell
PETA.
PETA.
Already forced 45 ships to do a 180. And now the Pentagon is using AI.
What if you told PETA and PETA like successfully invaded Iran, even though the U.S. military couldn't, just to save the dolphins? How ironic would that be?
to hunt down Iranian mines. The president says it's basically already over.
The blockade has been unbelievable, powerful, 100%. It's been actually unbelievable. If we left right now, we had a great victory, but we're not doing that.
The Pentagon says the blockade's already.
But we're not doing that. Okay. Very interesting comments from the president there. If we left right now, we had a great victory, but we're not doing that. What? Why not? Where's the follow-up from these journalists?
It cost the Iranians $5 billion.
$5 billion.
Is so high, it'd make Biden blush.
Oh, it's so high, it would make Biden blush. What's great to me, too, is that that conservatives buy this slop. Again, all they had to do is put the guy in the red tie at the top, and now suddenly all these people are believable, voices of integrity. Guys like Jesse Waters here. All right. Well, despite all the neocon slop coming out of the administration, there are some silver linings to the Trump era. I'm going to share one of those with you right now. And this is honestly, I've said this before, I'm not trying to pretend that Trump is playing 5D chess or anything like that. He's definitely not. But I do think that if you're going to unravel the, military industrial complex or any of those kind of things, it's almost like at this point you kind of just have to blow it up and start over. So what a better way to kind of do that than Trump threatens more cuts after U.S. announced withdrawal of 5,000 troops from Germany. So there's a couple of reasons I probably believe he's doing this. Number one is that he probably needs troops for Iran to invade Iran. So he's trying to where can we get those from? But also, I think he does really believe that we've been taken advantage of by Europe. And I think there is some truth to that. So let's read a little bit of this because there's some definite interesting takeaways within this. And we'll try to get through it quickly. Trump threatens more cuts after U.S. announced withdrawal of 5,000 troops from Germany. So right off the bat, the way that it's framed is threatening. He's threatening cuts it's instantly framed as like a threat. That's a bad thing that he wants to do that. Holy shit. Interesting, isn't that? Pentagon said Friday the U.S. will withdraw roughly 5,000 troops from Germany over the next year, a move President Donald Trump said is just the beginning. The decision, which came after Trump lashed out at the German chancellor over his criticism of the U.S. war, typo there, with Iran, would still leave more than 30,000 U.S. troops in the country. The Secretary of War has ordered the withdrawal of approximately 5,000 troops from Germany, Chief Pentagon spokesman Sean Parnell said in a statement. This decision follows a thorough review of the department's force posture in Europe and is in recognition of theater requirements and conditions on the ground. We expect the withdrawal to be completed over the next 6 to 12 months, excuse me. Trump said Saturday the U.S. will be cutting a lot further than the initial 5,000 troops. And to that, a lot of people said, Friction between European leaders and the Trump administration has intensified due to the war with Iran, which the U.S. launched without notifying most NATO allies. Also, it's not in Europe, which is kind of what NATO is for, I thought. The president has also lashed out at allies for what he sees as insufficient help in the conflict, threatening to cut troop levels in Italy and Spain as well. So again, I'm not sure that the Trump people really thought Europe was going along with them on this stuff, because they did start these wars themselves. But this is also a good opportunity to have an excuse to be like, oh, we're going to pull the troops then, you know? It gives them a reason. So again, it could be completely accidental. It most likely is completely accidental. But when they came in, they did say their stated. Marco Rubio said when he came in, and I don't like Marco Rubio at all, and I don't trust Marco. That's the other thing about like comment on what Trump's saying and doing. It's like the guy clearly just lies, like, you know, about everything. He's clearly a comment. So does it even matter what he says at this point? Anyway, I'm getting sidetracked here. So friction between Europe and the U.S., which it launched without notifying most NATO allies. The president has also lashed out at allies for what he sees as insufficient help in the conflict, threatening to cut troop levels in Italy. We already read that. Hours before Trump's comments Saturday, Republican chairman of the House and Senate Armed Services Committees released a statement saying they are very concerned by the decision to withdraw 5,000 troops. Why would they be concerned? And see, I think this might be why they manufactured the Ukraine thing. They're like, how do we got to make NATO worth the fucking investment. How do we do it? Well, arm a bunch of people on the border of Russia and have them like shoot missiles until Putin comes in and does something. And then we go, see, Russia's bad. That's exactly what they did in a simplified kind of timeline. Senator Roger Wicker and Rep. Mike Rogers urged the Pentagon. Sorry, let me go back to full screen for you here so you can read along if you want. Urged the Pentagon to keep U.S. troops present in Europe by moving them to the east, where allies have made substantial investments to host U.S. troops, while strengthening NATO's front line to help deter a far more costly conflict from ever beginning. So you have to, it's very obvious with these senators what's going on here. They are clearly, I would bet money if I looked them up right now. They're taking a bunch of money from the military industrial complex, and it's their job to ensure that that spending hose stays on at full blast.
I hear you. It's definitely a tiger by the tail.
But let's keep going here. German Defense Minister Boris Pistorius, I wonder if he's related to Jaco. If you know who Jaco is, you're a true music nerd. Played down the Pentagon's Friday announcement, calling it foreseeable and adding it showed the need for Europe to take greater responsibility for its own security. So the Europeans are like, yeah, right, dude. You're not going to pull that money. Come on. That's how you guys bribe us. What are you going to do? Germany was on the right track in this respect, he said. I mean, they haven't been exactly on board, he said this week when asked about the possibility. Yeah, probably will, he added. Why shouldn't I? Italy has not been of any help. Spain has been horrible. Absolutely. Germany, like some other European countries, has offered limited military support to the U.S., most notably allowing the use of its military infrastructure, such as air bases, for operation related to the conflict, though it has not permitted these to be used as staging grounds for direct offensive strikes.
Don't tase me, bro. Don't.
Trump foreshadowed the cuts earlier this week after German Chancellor Friedrich Merz said the U.S. was being humiliated by Iran. I like what the Duran guys call him, Black Rock Merz. Good old Black Rock Merz.
What's your name, scumbag?
Merz on Monday. Excuse me. Trump foreshadowed the cuts earlier this week after German Chancellor Friedrich Merz said the U.S. was being humiliated by Iran. Merz on Monday accused U.S. officials of entering the war without clear strategy, saying the whole affair is ill-considered, to say the least. The Iranians are obviously very skilled at negotiating, or rather very skillful at not negotiating, letting Americans travel to Islamabad and then leave again without any result, Merz said. An entire nation is being humiliated by the Iranian leadership, especially by these so-called Revolutionary Guards, and I hope that this ends quickly as possible. Trump said Tuesday Merz doesn't know what he's talking about on Iran, and the following day announced the U.S. was studying and reviewing a possible troop reduction. So they're trying to paint it as like, oh, he's just mad because they won't do Iran, and maybe he is. Trump previously threatened to reduce troop numbers in the country in 2020 during his first tenure in office, and while Angela Merkel held the chancellorship. Germany's home to Ramstein Air Base, which is the headquarters for the U.S. forces in Europe, including the unit that does airlift, airdrop, and aeromedical evacuation operations, and a North Atlantic Treaty Organization installation, according to its website. As of December 2025, there were 36,436 active U.S. military personnel permanently stationed in Germany, according to the data from the U.S. Defense Manpower Data Center. Merz has also pledged further German assistance under the condition of the conflict moves to a post-war phase, which would include participating in a potential international stabilization mission. So he's trying to kind of have his cake and eat it too, isn't he? He's kind of trying to basically say, okay, well, we're not going to help right out the gate because it's not popular, but we're also going to say that, hey, we will help when it gets to the post-war phase, and you guys need a security force. To that effect, Berlin recently announced a naval minesweeper will be deployed to the Mediterranean Sea in preparation for efforts to reopen the Strait of Hormuz once a lasting end to hostilities is reached. These actions, however, have failed to satisfy Trump. So he's still going to move the troops out anyway, I hope. But that's at least a sign that maybe he's doing something that he kind of teased he would. I think the big thing with Trump, and one of my cousins who's a little less kind of politically dedicated to either major party said, is that he's like, I've always just wanted someone to shake the tree, right? So whether you like 100% of what Trump's doing or not doing, at least he's shaking things up and not just kind of doing the Obama, like, let's just keep Bush's war going while we all smile about having a black president thing. And I will say the marijuana kind of reclassification thing, that's going to be good for the American economy in a lot of ways, because even now, when I go to a dispensary to buy marijuana, I can use a card. I can use a bank card now because of the reclassification. Now it's not like, persona non grata in the banking world, where before it's considered like buying heroin, you know what I mean? So it was like risky for banks to allow those merchants to sell that product. But now that it's been reclassified, that takes that kind of stigma off of it. And now the banking industry can actually help subsidize the cannabis industry. And I mean, it's one of the homegrown industries we have right now. I mean, California, and I think grows the best pot in the country, but there's a lot of other states that are, now that legal stuff is starting to come through, like Colorado and Oregon, that are, I mean, Oregon's always been top tier too. Let's be honest. Oregon and Washington, Pacific Northwest has always been on par with California, if not better. Let's be honest here. Humboldt County, in Northern Cal is some of the best, but I'm getting off on a tangent here about high quality marijuana. And that wasn't the point. The point is that, like, that's one little thing that may help a little bit, one little grain of hope in a sea of horse shit. But let's move on to the abortion debate, because this week, I have relatives that are definitely very Democrat leaning. And this week, one of them sent me this article about a challenge to abortion law. Now, because I'm so anti-Democrat, a lot of my relatives think that I'm a right-winger, pro-Trump, whatever, which, fine. The shoe fits, fine. So this relative will send me stuff to kind of like be like, hey, look at what right-wingers are doing. You know what I mean? Because I'm definitely not a right winger. Okay. I'm a Bernie Sanders guy. But I sympathize with blue collar mentality and right wing working class mentality. And I want to help build that coalition between all of us, you know? But anyway, he sends me this thing and it's kind of like divisive. It's kind of like, oh, look at what these dumb Republican fuckers are doing in Louisiana. Okay. And, you know, it had this remark about, and, you know, that instantly just puts me, whenever someone kind of comes at me with that like left versus right, liberal versus conservative thing, it instantly puts me at a place where I'm like, okay, what's the real issue here? Like, why are we trying to be distracted again with this? Like, why am I supposed to hate country folk? Or on the flip side, why am I supposed to hate liberals and people that live in cities? Why am I supposed to hate the rural? Why are the city people supposed to hate the rural people? What, you know, that's where my head goes immediately. And so the article was about a challenge to the abortion pill, which is now available nationwide by mail. And it's in Louisiana, I think. Anyway, I quickly responded. You know, I was like, look, they already handled this in court in the 2024. You know, a lot of people want to say that Trump is out to take women's abortion rights away. And to those people, I just have to show, do I have this clip? Do I have this clip? Well, yes, I do. Hold on a sec. I'm going to show you this real quick because I don't, again, this is the thing that bothers me, right? A lot of people still live in a world where it's 2015 or 2014 and we don't have, you know, 10 years of history, recent history to look at as a guide. Okay. And the Republicans of today, of 2026, are not the Republicans of 2006. Sure, there's still some like hard right, you know, religious right fuckers on the right. Where else are they going to go? They're not going to vote for Democrats. So they're still there. But Donald Trump and the new Republicans, they don't give a shit about preventing abortion. And the Supreme Court basically unanimously voted in 2024 that pharmaceutical companies can sell the pill to anyone in the country by mail. So that was the end of it. Despite Roe v. Wade being overturned, abortion is more widely available now than it's ever been, and rightfully so. Fuck you, conservatives. It's a bodily autonomy issue, just like the vaccine was. I don't care what your religious values think is or isn't a baby. It's not your job to control another woman's body because of your moral beliefs. If it really is a baby that she's killing, she will suffer the consequences for that. You know, and it's just so dumb to be on this crusade to save babies when you're fine with the state murdering criminals or, you know, waging endless wars on brown people in other countries. And at least the modern conservatives like Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson have come around to view, you know, that lack of consistency and own up to it, you know, and that's why they are respected and other people aren't, because now while I might not completely agree with Candace Owens or Tucker Carlson on some of their issues, at least they're trying to be consistent. At least they're trying to be honest about what they believe. And they're not, you know, pussyfooting around this. Like, well, I love asking conservatives if they're pro-life and then going, oh, well, do you support the death penalty? And them going, well, yeah, of course. And it's like, dude, you're pro-life and you support the death penalty. Just say that out loud 3 times. I'm pro-life and I support the death penalty. Say that repeatedly and just tell me how stupid you fucking sound. Be consistent, you know? If you're pro-life, you're pro all life, not just fetuses, you know? It's this whole mincing language for politics shit has to stop. Here's Trump.
Another abortion case, temporarily allowing emergency abortions to continue in Idaho, despite that state's restrictive ban. Former President Trump, you take credit for the decision to overturn Roe v. Wade, which returned the issue of abortion to the states.
Correct.
However, the federal government still plays a role in whether or not women have access to abortion pills. They're used in about 2/3 of all abortions. As president, would you block abortion medication?
First of all, the Supreme Court just approved the abortion pill, and I agree with their decision to have done that, and I will not block it. And if you look at this whole question that you're asking, complex, but not really complex. 51 years ago,
Look at
we had
Biden.
Roe v. Wade,
my
and
God.
everybody wanted to get it back to the states. Everybody, without
He's like
exception.
asleep right
Democrats,
there.
Republicans, liberals, conservatives, everybody wanted it back. Religious leaders. And what I did is I put 3 great Supreme Court justices on the court, and they happened
Now
to
he
vote
hates
in
them.
favor of killing Roe v. Wade and moving it back to the states. This is something that everybody wanted. Now, 10 years ago or so, they started talking about how many weeks and how many this, getting into other things. But every legal scholar throughout the world, the most respected, wanted it brought back to the states. I did that. Now the states are working it out. If you look at Ohio, it was a decision that was an end result that was a little bit more liberal than you would have thought. Kansas, I would say the same thing. Texas is different. Florida is different. But they're all making their own decisions right now. And right now, the states control it. That's the vote of the people. Like Ronald Reagan, I believe in the exceptions. I am a person that believes. And frankly, I think it's important to believe in the exceptions. Some people, you have to follow your heart. Some people don't believe in that. But I believe in the exceptions for rape, incest, and the life of the mother. I think it's very important. Some people don't. Follow your heart. But you have to get elected also. And because that has to do with other things. You got to get elected. The problem they have is they're radical because they will take the life of a child in the 8th month, the 9th month,
And
and
this is
even
all
after
bullshit.
birth.
This is where he veers into like complete nonsense. But the point of me showing you that, because now he's pandering, he's got to now that he has a sensible view on abortion, he has to hurry and pander to the extremists in the Republican Party, which Trump is good at. He's good at that pivot. So, but the point of me showing you that is not to like elevate Trump or go like, see, he's great on abortion. No, the point of me showing you that is just to show you that this is a manufactured issue that they want us to keep fighting about because the fight is kind of over. And correct me if I'm wrong, if you're a legal expert out there, but like once an issue gets to the Supreme Court, I guess some things can be overturned, but like that recent of a precedent is set. Can this escalate to, I'm going to read you the article real quick about that, because at the end of the day, what I told my friend here, my relative who kind of got me mixed up in this, was basically the battle is in court again between pharmaceutical companies and religious freaks. And so who do you think's going to win that battle? Who's got the fucking lawyers on their side? That's how they won the first time. It was unanimous. The Supreme Court said unanimously it's a commerce issue despite your religious values, and that these companies can sell their pill online to the entire country despite what your state thinks. That's what they ruled. So if you're a legal person and you know otherwise, let me know. But my take is this case I'm about to read to you, like the worst case scenario with this is it escalates to the Supreme Court and they just slap it down because they already ruled on this issue, right? But let's read the article real quick so you can get the idea of what I'm getting at here. So this is the article. This is actually not the article that just to prime you here. This is actually not the article that my relative sent me. This is a follow-up article because after, and they'll explain it in here, after this state, I think it's Louisiana, if I remember correctly, filed this suit, the pharma companies filed like emergency appeals. And what they're trying to do is make it so women have to go into a doctor to get the pill, because then they can control the distribution a lot better of the pill and shame women who need abortions for getting abortions like these friggin' cucks do, because they have nothing better to do with their lives than micromanage another woman's pregnancy. I love this, like, oh, I'm a conservative libertarian, I'm for freedom, but I also want to control every woman's pregnancy to term. Do you realize how fucking, again, I don't care what party you're from. I don't care whether you're conservative or liberal. I value intellectual consistency. Are you consistent? Because if you're a conservative freedom advocate who thinks that you have the right to micromanage every woman's pregnancy because of your religious values, you're insane. That's all. I mean, that's the reality. It's none of your fucking business. Women go through different situations, and it's not your job to morally fucking legislate every goddamn person's individual life. That's what you're supposed to be. Small government. I want a government so small that it regulates every goddamn girl's pussy on the goddamn country and based on my church. That's retarded. I'm sorry. But let's get into the article. Fight over online access to abortion pill reaches Supreme Court in emergency appeal. So I guess it's kind of already reached the Supreme Court. Maybe I just answered my own question. The makers of the abortion pill mifepristone filed an emergency appeal at the Supreme Court on Saturday, urging the justices to pause a lower court ruling that temporarily blocked Americans from accessing the drug through the mail. So what I'm understanding here is that these guys, the original article that my relative sent me about them blocking women's access to this was just usurped by the Supreme Court, who said, hey, we just ruled on this. You can't fucking do that. The fast track case filed with conservative Justice Samuel Alito puts the drug and the issue of abortion back on the high court's docket less than 2 years after justices rejected a similar challenge. That's what I was saying. A decision that allowed the drug to remain widely available. The Rush appeal comes a day after the conservative Fifth U.S. Court of Appeals reinstated a nationwide requirement that the medication, excuse me, I didn't change the slide for you guys, that the medication be obtained in person, undermining access to the method of abortion that was grown more widespread, that has grown more widespread since the court overturned Roe v. Wade in the 1973 precedent that established a constitutional right to abortion. The lower court ruling, Danco Laboratories, pharmaceutical company, told the Supreme Court in its appeal Saturday, injects immediate confusion and upheaval into lightly time-sensitive medical decisions. I love that choice of words there, injects, or if they did that intentionally. What happens when patients arrive for scheduled appointments this weekend and beyond, or walk into pharmacies in New York, Minnesota, Washington, and many other states today to obtain Mifeprex that was prescribed by a provider yesterday? The company's attorneys wrote, what should a patient do if she cannot obtain an in-person appointment immediately? Danco urged the Supreme Court to issue an administrative stay that would immediately pause the Fifth Circuit's decision. It also urged the Supreme Court to case the case up on the merits. I don't know if that must be a typo. I don't know what that means. Maybe I'm just not fluent in legal jargon. GenBio Pro, the maker of the, here we go. GenBio Pro, the maker of the generic version of the drug, filed a separate emergency application later Saturday. The court is likely to handle the two cases together. The Supreme Court must reject this unfounded, baseless attack on an essential medication. Evan Massengill, I bet that guy's a real douche. The Supreme Court, so Evan Massengill, the company's CEO, said in a statement, since the COVID-19 pandemic, another way COVID changed your lives for the better, ladies, women have been able to obtain mifepristone, one of two drugs in the medication abortion regimen, through telehealth appointments. President Joe Biden's administration finalized rules that ended the requirement that the pills be obtained through an in-person doctor's visit in 2023 after the Supreme Court overturned Roe. Good job, Biden. If that's true, that's one good thing that Biden did. I'll give him some credit there. As conservative states have responded to the Supreme Court's decision by banning or severely limiting access to clinic abortions, medication abortions have become more common. Medication abortions accounted for more than 60% of abortions in the U.S. in 2023, according to Guttmacher Institute research. Now, I would be interested to see what the statistic was before, but let's finish this article out. Louisiana sued last year, alleging that Biden-era regulation undermined its own abortion ban. A federal district court in April declined to restrict access to the drug until the FDA completed a safety review of the drug. A CNN analysis of mifepristone data shows that the drug is overwhelmingly safe and has fewer reported side effects than Viagra or penicillin. Of course. Do you know who CNN's biggest advertiser is? Guess which side they're on in this debate. I can guarantee you they're on the pharmaceutical side. And this is one of those instances where naked capitalism intersects with human rights, and women are getting the right to abortion just because a rich company wants to sell them a pill to do it. It's fucked up, but that's the reality. And hey, get it how you can. is my take. I'm not show me a petition that, safe medical abortions with doctors should be available in every fucking state every day, and I'll sign it. In the meantime, this is a good, stopgap, and it's pathetic. Again, if you're a conservative, libertarian leaning freedom person, this is none of your fucking business, just like the jab was none of their business. And that about settles it for me on this one. Let us move into one of the biggest stories in recent times, and that is the loss of InfoWars by Alex Jones to The Onion. And listen, The Onion used to be great. It's one of those examples of how politics can just ruin things because, it's just not funny to suck the ass of the establishment. It's just, you can try to make it funny. They can throw a lot of money at trying to make it funny, but it's just never funny. The other problem with Alex Jones is he's already hilarious on his own. I mean, I have several Alex Jones sound drops that I play on a regular basis. And let's play a couple of those right now, if I can find them. I need to I definitely need to alphabetically.
No, I hear you. It's definitely a tiger by the tail.
I need to alphabetically order these sound drops because I get lost and I have so many of them now.
ADL is played out. Nobody knows who the ADL are. Stop giving them attention. No one in high school knew what the word anti-Semitic was until Ye made it popular.
On Alex Jones' show. Turns out I only have one Alex Jones sound drop. I'm sorry if I disappointed you there. To continue, though, Alex Jones lost a lawsuit and had to give the InfoWars brand over to The Onion. And they relaunched with this guy, Tim Heidecker, who I know he's like part of Tim and Eric or whatever, but I never really paid attention to that. So he's probably great, but based on this, I don't think he's very funny. But before we get into that, I just want to show you one of the greatest Alex Jones rants of all time in tribute to the end of InfoWars. And I did not bring my sad trumpet sound effect, but let's just enjoy this together.
This is an emergency transmission from deep in the heart of Texas, the U.S. resistance against a global corporate combine empowered and funded by Communist China, allied with the big mega banks that set up Communist China in 1949. They are now beta testing using me as the straw man, a demonized version of Alex Jones, to do that. This is happening. This is not like the other probes before that were meant to get you used to probes and censorship, thinking you would adapt to censorship by just putting up with it. Now this attack is thousands and thousands and thousands of times the magnitude of all previous attacks. This is a titrated dose, reverse psychological warfare operation using adapt and overcome subversion paradigm manipulation. In layman's terms, they are manipulating the fact that we adapt to being oppressed. We adapt to being pressed at the low dosages of oppression. Now, when the megaton hits us of the total takeover, we try to adapt to the poison infusion instead of not knowing it's a lethal dose if we accept the dose. Total Internet of Things, integration, global social score, complete command and control system. It is the virtual reality AI weapon system now attacking the United States.
Okay, we'll stop there. But what Alex Jones tribute would be complete without the ultimate Alex Jones cultural moment? You know what I'm talking about, right? You know exactly what I'm talking about. I'm talking about, of course, gay frogs. R.I.P. Alex Jones. Let's hear this.
I don't like them putting chemicals in the water that turn the friggin' frogs gay. Serious crap. I don't like them putting chemicals in the water that turn the friggin' frogs gay. Do you understand that? Turn the friggin' frogs gay. Serious crap, gay. Frogs, friggin' frogs. It's not funny. I'm gonna say it real slow for you. Gay. Frog.
I'm gonna say it real slow for you. Whoever remixed that is brilliant. So I show you this just to show you, like, this is what you have to keep up with when you're parodying Alex Jones. And let's just real quick get a taste of the hilarious, I might add, InfoWars parody that is being done by The Onion and Tim Heidecker. Here we go. Hope you're strapped in.
But I'm going to sip from the blood of the Forsaken. This is real human blood. You can find this at the InfoWars store. This is a human blood curated from the Forsaken and sinners. All right, this is pure premium blood, tested, FDA unapproved. And this is just human blood. As part of my satanic ritual, I am a servant to Satan, and thank God I was able to get him and the Lord to sit down and come to their senses and get things back to before Satan was cast into hell. So I'm part of that. I'm part of the peace movement.
I like that song. Yay!
It's thick. It tastes like blood. And this is Satan giving me the powers to continue to fight. And we will continue to fight. And I cheers to you. If you have access to the blood of the Forsaken and of all the children, this is not blood. These are adult. This is adult blood, by the way. Ain't no question. I made sure of that because I don't want to get in trouble. But this is the blood of the Forsaken. It's hot.
So, with that, I had to bring this up so I could show you my response here and some of the kind of cope here. I said, this probably goes real hard for retards who still think Colbert and Kimmel are funny. And I got a decent amount of traction on that response. I didn't ratio the original poster because he's got a bot army behind him. But they said, who do you think is funny? And I gave them an objective answer. I said, right now, Tim Dillon, Ryan Long, William Montgomery, they've all done really funny and cultural relevant stuff that is levels and levels above this retread of Colbert's Tuck Buckman brain fight sketch, which was already dem slop to begin with. This guy had to research those people, of course, because he doesn't know who they are. This guy says vape it as tweet. DNC bot swarms have arrived. Don't worry, it's just comedy. It won't hurt you physically. No, it's not comedy. It's not funny. That's the thing too, is that's how these people cope, is they act like your feelings are hurt. My feelings aren't hurt at all by that. I actually am somewhat embarrassed for that Tim Heidecker guy because, like I said, it's tough to top Alex Jones. He's already funny on his own. And, Tim Heidecker could be hilarious. I don't know his stuff, so I can't objectively say, oh, fuck Tim Heidecker, he sucks. I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying that what I just showed you is objectively unfunny. And again, I can't really be mad at Tim Heidecker because how do you be more hilarious than Alex Jones is on his own? He's fucking hilarious. And so the final take here on the new InfoWars came fast and furious from Twitter, and it was this. And I'll just let you digest that for a moment while I puff on this chemically packaged garbage from China. Somehow it's so enjoyable, though. Moving on. Now we're getting to the good stuff, you guys. Now we're getting to the good stuff right here. We are going to talk about everyone's favorite party, the Democrats. And, when I say the Democrats, of course, we get this. Everybody loves the Democrats, right? They still don't have a platform yet, because if they did, they would have to kind of be like, yeah, we kind of support everything Trump's doing in the Middle East and in Venezuela. It would all be happening under us too, which is kind of why Trump won. Everyone kind of, knew that based on how Kamala and Biden handled the whole situation with our best friends in the Middle East. See how I did that when I talked about them? That's a signal.
I like that song. Yay!
So let's talk about Hasan Piker, the de facto leader of the Democratic Party right now. I wouldn't say de facto leader. That's Obama's still kind of the top dog, I think, right now in the Democratic Party, right? Bill Clinton had his run. He's still around, but Obama's kind of like the last great Democratic president living. But it looks like they're trying to elevate Hasan Piker. And you can tell that he's got the backing of the corporates because he's showing up on shows on like Hot 97 with like Charlemagne or what is it, Ebro. I always mix those guys up. Breakfast Club and the other one are totally different. But they're both kind of like New York hip hop shows that lately cultural Democrats have been hitting up. And you can kind of see this with the Democrat strategy. You can, because it was only in recent years, like in the Biden era, that Biden pops up on like Howard Stern, and Democrats are popping up on Charlemagne and Ebro and all these shows that are kind of like more cultural than political. And that's because that's the Democrat strategy. Their strategy is a cultural, and they're like, we're not going to try to be different than the Republicans politically. We're just going to try to like hammer the celebrity thing harder and work harder to tell people what they want to hear, even though we'll never enact it other than like incrementally enough that our donors don't, ever shun us or protest us. So you could see real obviously what's going on with your boy Hasan Piker here, because they're putting him out now as a thing. And this is, of course, right after the Democrats are complaining about how they need a Joe Rogan in their life, right? So I said, Democrats, what are we going to do when Trump is gone? DNC, we need a Joe Rogan, the Hasan guy. Kids love him. Let's send him out. So let's listen to what he has to say here.
For far too long, we've been told you have to vote for harm reduction. We all know the Republicans are corrupt. We all know that they're monsters. They're racist. They traffic in hatred. But we are here to say we are no longer going to vote for do-nothing Democrats either. We're voting for Democrats with a purpose.
Notice how he ended that? We're voting for Democrats with a purpose. He's never going to say, don't vote for Democrats. But which Democrats are we talking about here, Hasan? So he's sheepdogging, clearly. Now, me personally, I'm not going to ever vote for the Democrats again, because as we're going to see, they're just the Republicans with better PR. And I've said this repeatedly, like a broken record. But let's continue to examine Hasan's credibility here. This is a recent clip of him with Yanis Varoufakis. And Yanis takes Hasan to task right here in his continued support for the Democratic Party. Jake Chinatown, props to you for this. Yanis Varoufakis is baffled as to why Hasan Piker would even try to help the Democratic Party. Let's listen.
Complain about their union brethren being super right-wing and super reactionary and voting for Donald Trump. And obviously the alternative is the Democrats, which is also a liberal party that's also a bourgeois party. And they're not necessarily representing their interests either, but
what do you mean not necessarily?
They're not
They
representing
treat them like deplorables. Remember?
Yeah, that's
Do you
true.
remember Hillary?
Yeah, no, for sure. but like there is an opportunity there.
Donald Trump didn't really have to try very hard to become president of the United States.
No.
He had the Clintons and the Obamas doing all his work for him.
Yeah, and not all, I mean, even with Kamala Harris too. Oh
What do you mean?
God.
Especially
Kamala Harris. It was disastrous. And I just kept yelling at them. I went to the DNC. I talked to them in person. I tried so hard and got so far.
The DNC want Trump to be in the presidency if the alternative is somebody like Mamdani or our friend Bernie.
Yeah.
They actively chose Trump in 2015-16.
There it is.
Over Bernie Sanders.
There it is.
They knew what they were doing.
They knew what they were doing. Yes, they did. A lot of conservatives would have voted for Bernie Sanders over Trump. And the Democrats would have, and their donors said this. There's a clip in my intro of that dickhead guy admitting this during the Bernie Sanders race in 2020. The Democratic Party is just donors. It's just a shell of its former self. It's been hollowed out. It's just a donor apparatus now. They serve only donors. They don't serve people. They pretend to serve people, so it looks like. But they're losing elections now because the people don't vote for them. You know, some people that are dumb enough to still buy the cult nonsense do, and rich, comfortable liberals who, you know, have their parents' money or, you know, are comfortably well off and stuff still vote for Democrats. But that's it. You know, the rest of it is like Republicans. You know, a good example of the modern Democrat is my sister's mother-in-law, who's a very wealthy kind of older woman who, you know, has worked in medical industry her whole life. And she's a great person, you know, but she is a former Republican turned Democrat because of Trump. That's the modern Democratic Party. And there's nothing wrong with that, but also those people don't actually feel the pain of the working class. And that's why they need a guy like Hasan to sheep herd them back into a party that does not work for them. And they have to run these ops like no kings to pretend like they're against, or the Bernie Sanders, we're against the oligarchy thing. Meanwhile, they have J.B. Pritzker as one of their like top candidates and Tom Steyer, you know, because the reality is, like I said earlier with Trump and Dan Bilzerian, people of independent wealth are the only people who can take on the establishment and actually win. But just to show you how fake this is, Nick Cruz did this great piece. He was the first person I saw, because if you noticed recently, the King of Britain, the King of England came to the United States to advocate for more regime change wars and to get us psyched up to join them in the fight against Russia. And Nick Cruz was the first person I saw point out how the Democrats 5 minutes ago were for no kings. And then all of a sudden they're like, yay, look, it's the King of England. We got to listen to the king, you guys. We got to listen to what the king says. So check this out. This is Nick's kind of breakdown of this whole thing. He does a great job right here.
Visits the United States in order to promote unity between the Epstein class and to promote never-ending war against Russia. King Charles, during his speech to Congress, rejects any notion about pursuing peace with Russia and even floats invoking Article 5, plunging the world into World War III in order to defend Ukraine.
Immediate aftermath of 9/11, when NATO invoked Article 5 for the first time, and the United Nations Security Council was united in the face of terror, we answered the call together, as our people have done so for more than a century, shoulder to shoulder through 2 world wars, the Cold War, Afghanistan, and moments that have defined our shared security. Today, Mr. Speaker, that same unyielding resolve is needed for the defense of Ukraine and her most courageous people.
Notice how nostalgic he sounds when discussing these devastating wars of the past, instead of learning lessons from them and why we should avoid pursuing war in the future. Like, bro, mentioning how NATO helped the United States destabilize the Middle East is not the flex that you think it is.
Someone in my Twitter view was like, get this inbred fool out of my feed. Like, I don't want to listen to this guy. We shucked these guys years and years ago for a reason. And that's the attitude of America that I've always kind of, you know, taken to heart, is we've always been rebelled against this kind of nonsense. But let me let Nick finish.
Also, notice how Democrats gave him a standing ovation when he was calling for never-ending war against Russia. Wait a minute, I thought you guys was opposed to kings. These fake motherfuckers held no kings rallies, only to give a standing ovation to a literal king whose royal family is implicated in the Epstein scandals. Speaking of Epstein scandals, do you guys know that King Charles refused to meet with the Epstein victims during his visit to the United States? Couldn't even be bothered to mention them in the speech. I guess he was too busy promoting war in order to do so. You guys notice how this meeting was essentially a class unity demonstration between the Epstein class, and it should make every single American sick.
Well said, brother Nick. So Nick is right. Here is footage of Nancy Pelosi cheering for the king, up close and personal. And Steny Hoyer and all of them. Who we got here? We got all of the Democrats in Congress. Is that and we got Hoyer, we got cheering for the king. Just cheering for the king, guys. And I had to go and dig this up because I remembered this and I couldn't find it on X. But here is Nancy Pelosi passionately advocating for the. Hold on a sec. Let me make sure this is visible because I'm getting messages that my stuff is gone now. There's Nancy Pelosi passionately advocating against kings right here. So it's just interesting to watch her go, hey, no kings. Like we you can't just have a king come and start a war. And then, of course, cheering when King Charles comes over and says, hey, we need to do a war with Ukraine. Last but not least, though, we got Pelosi here for you giving the game away when it comes to these rallies. And this is a great clip, actually. Very hesitantly, she tells you what's going on here. Watch this. Nancy Pelosi, no kings protests were totally spontaneous, organic, and apolitical.
Because I see the Democrats every day. You saw a march that was not political, and the value of it was that it wasn't political. No King's Day. It was spontaneous, organic, but everybody was there. And that's what's important is what are the people thinking? What are they hopeful about? What are they willing to get out the vote for?
Totally organic, totally not manufactured, those no kings protests. So, to continue down this path here with the Democrats, who are more than likely going to end up winning something in the next election cycle, as much as I don't like it, as much as I hope that the American public will reject both parties and vote for third party across the ballot, I doubt that's going to happen. And there's enough anger, I think, with the Republicans economically that unless Trump works some magic in the next 3 months, they're going to lose big come November. But it's good to know that when they do, these guys are going to take over. This is Obama recently shouting down a protester at an event. Listen to this.
But here's I'm happy to talk about this if it's a part of the question. But again, some rules around how we talk. Well, yes, there are disasters and catastrophes everywhere, sir.
he struggled there to say that's anti-Semitism. I know he would have reached for that if that whole thing hadn't been bludgeoned to the ground like it has, but he had to go some rules around how we talk, because first of all, the only way he's ever going to be asked that question is by an angry protester who shouts it out, because no one on stage is going to ask him that. These events are carefully stage managed. So, what he said is there need to be rules around how we talk. Yeah, because you're not going to get that question in a friendly environment, and you're not going to go to an oppositional environment because you don't have, I don't blame you for that. You're the ex-president. You don't really have to, but you can comfortably come out and advocate for your shit and then somehow be upset when people kind of call you out on what is obviously the most pressing issue of our time, and this is the de facto leader of the Democratic Party, I would argue, Obama. But at least, to Obama's credit, he's not as bad at this as your boy Richie Torres here. Because Torres, man, this guy, he just plays dumb the whole time. Listen to this. Hold on.
Cut off time.
This is from Jose.
Hey, how you doing, brother?
What's going on? How are you?
Hey, I'm good. How are you? Can we cut off ties with AIPAC, Congressman? This makes it look like you're bought, and we can't keep sending cells and weapons to Israel.
What are you talking about?
I'm talking about taking money from AIPAC and sending money to Israel.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
What do you mean you have no clue what I'm talking about?
Never
U.S.
heard of
is
this.
not sending money to Israel
I have no idea what you're talking about.
through defense packages that you have voted for? No clue what I'm talking about.
No idea.
Okay, I'll let your constituents see this. Hey, how you doing, brother?
So that's the other option you have, is just completely play dumb like Richie Torres here. So that can work as a strategy. I asked Keith Olbermann what his take was on that, and this is what he had to say.
Heart feces.
We bring Keith Olbermann to the debate every once in a while we crowbar Keith Olbermann into the debate, and everybody loves some KO in their life.
No one in high school knew what the word anti-Semitic was until Ye made it popular.
I heart porn star dick. Now, I'll confess that I have licked Joe Biden's dick all the way through since 1975.
So this is where we have to go. Now, obviously, the Richie Torres play dumb strategy can work, but I think a much more, worthwhile approach for the Democrats is the one that this lady here uses, where she talks to people like she is a kindergarten teacher and they are her students. This is more the line I would expect the Democrats to take. Listen to this is from my boy Kareem right here. Check this out.
Well, my personal view on this, and so I don't know particularly any one person with their opinions and how I would respond to them, but my personal view on this is what we're seeing in Gaza is a humanitarian crisis. It is a crisis that needs to be dealt with. It is not a genocide.
So this goes back to the clip I played last week of George Carlin, where he said, no one lies anymore. They just rename it. There you have it. It's not it's a humanitarian crisis. That is how it's done, Democrats, right there. If you really want to win elections, you need to speak to your constituents in that tone of voice, like a condescending kindergarten teacher speaking to children. And to ice this cake for you, just layer of sweet perfection here. It's a Dem consultant being done by this comedian, an impression of a Democrat consultant. And this was shared by Professor Zenkis here. But this lady pretty much just bullseye hit this thing right here with how she describes it. So Professor Zenkis says Democrats have a strategy to excite voters, and they're ready to win in 2028 the way they did in 2024. And they mean it. And this is this lady's, I'm pretty sure she's not being serious. This is tongue in cheek, obviously, but just nailing it.
Democrats, we hear you loud and clear. You keep trying to tell us what matters to you most, and that's exactly why we keep hiring more consultants. Good ones from the John Kerry era who still have a lot of fresh ideas that just might appeal to you bright-eyed 24-year-old millennials. Hey, the 2028 election is right around the corner, and don't worry. We're working hard to give you that folksy, middle-of-the-road nominee who's endorsed by at least 3 retired Republicans. We hear you, and we're on it. Trust us. We understand that you're tired of corporate influence in politics, and that's exactly why we're working closely with our biggest corporate donors to address that concern, silly goose. We're tuned into the wants and needs of our voters. That's why we're making sure that the ICE agents in your neighborhood are trained in our new community sensitivity training program. The data from our focus groups in rural Wyoming is clear. Democrats under 40 want moderate tax reform and universal fishing licenses. See? We get it. Look, let's address the elephant in the room. We're aware that public opinion on a certain ongoing conflict in a certain region of the world has shifted dramatically. We want you to know that we're committed to pursuing a comprehensive multilateral framework for dialogue that prioritizes humanitarian considerations and a path towards a sustainable resolution that proposes a mutually optimized geographic arrangement.
And that is the difference between Democrats and Republicans right there. How they talk. Nothing else. And that is why the Democratic Party is a dead party. Now, that doesn't mean they might not still win some elections here and there, but they're a dead party. Look at this. This is the cancer metastasizing in the Democratic Party. Hamas is 1,000 times better than the IDF. It's not even close. Okay, that's an opinion you can have in America. I would like to see the statistics, because statistically, I'm willing to bet if you're being honest, she's not wrong. But let's keep moving. This is quite possibly the story of the day about Tucker Carlson. And I want to kick you off right here with this screenshot that I took from an article that came out in 2021. So this is 5 years ago, and read this headline with me. Talking with Tucker Carlson, the most powerful conservative in America. Now, I believe at the time he was still at Fox News, and that's why I love this photo of this woman like doing his makeup, because they're kind of razzing him a little with the photo. Let me see here. When was Tucker fired from Fox? Tucker Carlson was let go on April 24th, 2023. So this was, in fact, before he was fired from Fox News. Now, the New York Times recently did an interview with Tucker, and this has been turned into a hit piece by a lot of the Trump regime influencers, if you've been on social media lately. And you'll see all the same retards kind of saying the same thing. Laura Loomer and Eyal Jacobi and Mario Nawfal and all the people who are clearly getting a check to cleverly, and I use that with sarcasm, recycle regime talking points on the internet and make it look like there's support for bullshit. So you've seen them kind of spreading this narrative that Tucker lied about something. And he lied to the NY Times. And they asked him basically if he called Trump the Antichrist, and he said no. And then they produced a clip of him allegedly calling Trump the Antichrist. And so, of course, all these dipshits who are just looking for any way possible to discredit the guy with arguably one of the largest, probably the largest audience in political commentary, they're going to be like, oh, see, he's a liar. He's a liar. So we're going to dive into that a little bit. He's a Nazi, he's an anti-Semite, white supremacist. You know, all these people jumped on the bandwagon and started singing their typical douche chorus, reading from the same lyric sheet. So here is the genesis of this story for you right here with Ryan Saavedra. Ryan's got you. He says, so this is the breakdown of this is ground zero right here. NYT, you've been talking on your show about whether Trump is the Antichrist, Tucker Carlson. I have not said that. NYT, you said, here's leader mocking the gods and the ancestors mocking God, exalting himself above them. Could this be the Antichrist? I actually did not say, could this be the Antichrist? So let's watch this.
Is the Antichrist.
I have not said that.
On your show, the day after Easter, you noted he did not put his hand on the Bible during his swearing-in ceremony as president. You said, and I'm quoting, maybe he didn't put his hand on the Bible because he affirmatively rejects what's inside that book. And then on a recent show, you went further saying, here's a leader who's mocking the gods of his ancestors, mocking the God of gods and exalting himself above them. Could this be the Antichrist?
I actually did not say, could this be the Antichrist? Here's a leader who's mocking the gods of his ancestors, mocking the God of gods, and exalting himself above them. Could this be the Antichrist? Well, who knows? I don't know where that comes from, but I know that those words never left my lips because I'm not sure I fully understand what the Antichrist is. If there's just one, I actually tried to understand it. I may have said some are asking that. I'm not weighing in on that because I don't understand it.
So, okay, that looks bad, like he lied. And Josie, the redheaded libertarian, put together this reel of all the people saying the same thing about this. Tucker Carlson's a pathologically evil. Dave Rubin, Mehdi Hasan. Well, to your shock and amazement, maybe not. Actually, let me show you this real quick because I think I killed the screen before I showed you this reel that Josie put together of all the people talking shit about Tucker, the usual suspects. Let me make sure you got. Did you see that? I keep coming back to my screen and it's not there. This is it. So, surprise, this is a completely manufactured smear, of course. The clip was deceptively edited by the New York Times and, of course, was intended to be used to discredit Tucker Carlson, who has a large and threatening audience to these people. If you're a conservative and you're suddenly finding yourself siding with the New York Times, you should really stop and ask yourself why. I mean, I'm a Bernie Sanders Democrat and I fucking despise the New York Times for their fucking, oh my God, they're just the worst cunts. And it's, you know, let me show you this real quick. Let me show you this breakdown so you can understand what I'm talking about here. So the Tucker NYT clip on the Antichrist was deceptively edited. It was made to look like he denied using those words, then was shown then and there, then was shown a clip of him using those words, to which he responds that he never used those words. What obviously actually happened was that he denied using those words, and then she read them to him, which he responds that he never used them because he wouldn't claim something like that. The clip was thrown in the middle of the conversation post-edit to make it appear like he was insane or straight up lying. The older clip in full has him saying that this is what others are claiming, but he himself isn't sure. He clearly forgot that he actually did use those words, but was correct that he wouldn't positively make such a claim. People I know are better than this are falling for it. And that's exactly what they wanted. Where's the guy? There's another guy who had a response that I thought was really good. Here it is. So listen to this.
For people who know the Bible well and believe in it, these predictions in both the Old and the New Testament, and there are others, seem to fit what we were watching. Here's a leader who's mocking the gods of his ancestors, mocking the God of gods, and exalting himself above them. Could this be the Antichrist? Well, who knows? At least that's my conclusion. Who knows? We're also told repeatedly in the New Testament that you're not going to know, that Jesus will return like a thief in the night, and and you better be ready because you can't predict it. But we're also told there are signs, and is this one of them? Well, again, unclear.
There you go. So he did actually say he doesn't know, and they're using this as some kind of evidence that he's a liar, which it was obvious from the beginning that's what they were going to do. And so you dig into the interview and you start to see why they're elevating this smear. It's likely to cover up for the reality that it's, obvious who the New York Times is working for, like most corporate American media outlets, and they're doing the bidding of their masters. And this woman right here, this account, she's called Sikh Feminist, the type of, right-wing white supremacist you would expect to support Tucker Carlson. But check this out. She says, "Who is this insufferable Zionist interviewing Tucker? My God." Listen to this. I just shut the sound off.
Who do you think is more?
Who do you think is more morally repulsive, Ted Cruz or
Who
Nick
do you think
Fuentes?
is more morally repulsive?
Ted Cruz. Ted Cruz
No
is a
hesitation.
sitting U.S. senator who has called for the killing of people who did nothing wrong, whole populations who advocated for this war. Nick Fuentes is like a kid. He's like 26 or 7. He has no power except his words. Here you have a public official who we pay, who has actual power, who's voting for things, who's making policy decisions. And those decisions would include, in fact, they are focused on the murder of people who did nothing wrong. And yet no one thinks it's a big deal. Well, this is totally fine. I mean, if there's tape of Nick Fuentes saying we should kill people because we hate their parents, or it's okay to kill children, I would love to see the tape, because that's disgusting. And that's basically what the entire U.S. Senate does every single day, and no one notices. Nick Fuentes said something naughty that I disagreed with. He made fun of things that I don't think I would never make fun of them.
He's a white nationalist who's denied the Holocaust. And what I will say,
Okay, but is that worse than killing kids?
From my understanding of my own, I was just in Germany recently, and it was such a good reminder that the Holocaust didn't start with the gassing of Jews. It started with the dehumanization of Jews. It was language that was used. And again, that is what it concerns
I couldn't
people.
agree more. And that's why when you have a U.S. senator, a member of Congress, a U.S. ambassador waving away civilian deaths as if they don't matter,
So this lady is trying to help make the case, like Obama, that there needs to be guardrails for speech, which I patently reject, and you should too, regardless of what your political stripes are. But I do not like the New York Times. My God, this lady is insufferable.
the language of genocide, which results, and this is the lesson of the Holocaust, in genocide itself. And it has. So the lesson for me, really, watching all of this, is that this can happen in civilized countries. In all human beings, there is the capacity to ignore the evil right in front of you. And my point is, it's happening right now. And my job, to the extent I have one, I don't really have a job, but I just want to remind people that we're all capable of that, including me, and that we're watching it right now. And if you think that Nick Fuentes is a greater threat to other human beings than Ted Cruz, I would love to know how.
I can imagine people hearing this and thinking you are soft pedaling Nick Fuentes. You are apologizing for Nick
hardly
Fuentes.
soft pedaling Nick Fuentes. I'm trying to awaken people to killing of innocents in our midst, which we are not only encouraged to ignore, but really told to ignore on pain of being denounced. And I'm just saying, no, I'm not doing that.
You're soft. She turns Tucker's totally sensible, rational response to that. Like, is someone saying something that hurts your feelings worse than actual people being killed? She takes that into, you're soft pedaling Nick Fuentes. And I'm glad that Tucker did this, because the New York Times audience, no matter how they cut this up, they can't hide from how idiotic their interviewer looks next to someone like Tucker Carlson. And that's why they spun this narrative that he lied in the interview like they did. That's their takeaway from it. It has to be their takeaway, because that all they can do is try to discredit the interview and make people not want to watch it. But it's going to have the Streisand effect, and it's just going to bring more people to Tucker Carlson's side, because he's speaking confidently and rationally, and he's making great points and making a lot of sense. Nick Fuentes is a white. They try to accuse Candace Owens of being a white nationalist. But the reality is, you can't have. Why did the New York Times again suddenly take this interview? You know, this is from Time, but why are these mainstream media outlets suddenly taking interest in Tucker Carlson again? Because he has a large, massive audience that is threatening, and they have to do something to try and stop it, to discredit him, to make him look bad. And there's obviously a certain group of people that are being paid to pretend that he's some terrible person. But this is another reason right here that he is right now being discredited, because he's saying things that you shouldn't be allowed to say. Listen to this. This is my boy Ryan Knight, Power to the People. Tucker Carlson blasts Trump as being held hostage by Benjamin Netanyahu.
It's hard for me to believe that he just sort of organically reached this place at the end of February. He's like, oh, I think it's a good idea. He did not think it was a good idea. Shutting down a fifth of the world's oil and gas? Of all people, Trump knows that's bad.
You said he's a hostage just now. You told the BBC he's a slave to foreign interests.
Correct.
So I just want to ask you to be sort of explicit. I mean, Trump is being held hostage by whom? Or by who?
Benjamin
Or by
Netanyahu and by his many advocates in the United States. And we know that not simply because Trump started the war on February 28th, but because he couldn't get out of it. He declares we're having a ceasefire. This was 4 weeks in. He says we're having a ceasefire and we're having these talks and they're going great and we're going to open the strait. And Iran says, yeah, one of our conditions is Israel's got to pull back from southern Lebanon. You can't use the Iran war as a pretext for stealing more land from a sovereign country. That's not your country. Like, no. And
especially when 5 minutes ago, we were accusing Putin of doing the same thing and acting like we had some kind of moral high ground in this situation. I mean, that's been thrown completely out the window. And maybe that's why Trump wanted to end the Ukraine war. Anything's possible at this point.
Which, and it's not just Iran who felt that way. I think the rest of the world's like, what are you doing? I thought we were, fighting the great existential threat, Iran, and now you're taking the opportunity to take Lebanon shore of the Litani River and bombing downtown Beirut. Like, what is this? Anyway, this was all very well known. And within hours of announcing this, Trump announcing this, Israel publicly, in a way that was designed to get the attention of everyone, including the Iranians, starts killing civilians in Lebanon. Now, what was the point of that? Not to secure the Israeli homeland. The point of that was to end any talk of a negotiated settlement, to keep this going until Iran was destroyed and chaotic, which is the Israeli goal. I'm not attacking Israel by saying that. Their goals are different from ours. They're a different country.
Yeah, they would argue, of course, that what they are doing is neutralizing the threat.
Of course.
Yes, they would argue because they pay me to make that argument for them for the New York Times and look like I'm just some innocent liberal woman.
Been persistent in Lebanon through Hezbollah.
Oh, okay. But I mean, they invaded Lebanon in 1982. Okay. So that was 44 years ago. They've had a lot of experience in Lebanon. A lot. They've had a lot of time to fix Lebanon. They killed Nasrallah. They blew up Hezbollah with explosive pagers. Like, they've done a lot since October 7th in Lebanon. They chose that moment to derail the negotiations. And they've done this repeatedly. And so my perspective as an American is, look, we're the United States. We're a country of 350 million people. You are wholly dependent on us. You're a country of 9 million people with no natural resources. I'm not against you, but we're not co-equals here. But the point I'm making is Trump could not restrain Netanyahu. Netanyahu is the one person Trump could not say, hey, settle down, or we'll just defund you and your country will collapse in about 10 minutes, which is true. Israel can't defend itself without the United States, despite whatever propaganda you may have heard. So again, it's not an attack on Israel. It's an attack on American leadership for not constraining its partner in a way that helps the United States. Trump said, I want a negotiated settlement. Israel stopped the settlement. Trump refused to even criticize Netanyahu in public. Are you joking? That's slavery. That is total control of one man by another. And it's, that's between Trump and Bibi and God, as far as I'm concerned. But as an American, that's our president, our elected president, whose job is to protect our country and our interests and our economy. And he is looking out for Israel first. That's outrageous. And no amount of like, oh, you're an anti-Semite, which I'm not, and I'm never going to be, is going to stop me from noting that that's outrageous. It is outrageous.
Before we,
I love that. And I'm never going to be. Because that's what they're going to come at him with. And it's very clear when you watch that why they're lying about him. And they're trying to paint him as a liar because he's making points that they can't really argue against credibly. And it's very funny and telling that these discredited, disgraced institutions like the New York Times still think they can tell us who is and isn't credible. The New York Times is trash. It's fucking garbage. And, you might find a diamond in the trash every now and then, right? You might find some treasure in the trash every now and then. There's a good report in there every once in a while. I'm not going to deny that. It's still a fucking dumpster. And these people are desperately clinging to the era when they and they alone shaped the perception of the world. And that era is long gone. And they're struggling with that. What they could do, and I think what they're kind of like starting to realize by doing these podcast type things, and I will give them at least credit for interviewing Tucker Carlson and letting him say the things he just said, but they're trying to slowly pivot to look like Joe Rogan or look like these people who actually have credibility, not because they're great people or not because they're not flawed, but because they're transparent. I just watched Joe Rogan's Protect Our Parks, and it's fun to watch that because it's almost like you're sitting at a party with a bunch of dudes having whiskey and chatting about their lives, and I think that's why it's relatable. But the news it's long gone, and Tucker Carlson took his credibility with him away from Fox News. Fox News is basically trash that trying to tell you that Iranian dolphins are coming with lasers attached to their head to murder you. So we got one more story today, and this is another great one, and it involves another one of my heroes these days, yours and my heroes, and that is Miss Candace Owens. We love Candace Owens here at the Politics Show because despite having some disagreements, you just have to respect that kind of fire and that commitment to integrity and honesty. And, again, there's stuff I disagree with Candace about, but this is someone who also, like Tucker, is clearly over the target right now and being attacked with vigor by establishment, figures. And Candace is doing such a great job that the most hated organization in America, Congress, recently passed a resolution condemning her. This is like being condemned by a wet fart or a swarm of cockroaches, or what else do people hate? Or Laura Loomer. It actually makes you look better when an organization as hated as Congress condemns you. So kudos to Candace for that. But just to make sure that everyone knew both parties are equally corrupt and full of shit, they also condemned Hasan Piker as well. It's bipartisan retardation. A lot of people don't know this, but retard is a musical term, actually. It means slow down. Just to give you some context there. So I said, economy's tanking, gas over $5 a gallon nationwide. Congress, let's spend our time condemning Hasan Piker and Candace Owens for hurting our Jewish owners' feelings. Candace Owens and Hasan Piker are to be officially condemned by a bipartisan House resolution for their anti-Semitism, and the resolution will be introduced by Reps Lawler and Gottenheimer. Owens and Piker are openly anti-Semites. Soon it'll be on the federal record. What a pathetic... I love reading the comments. And of course, this is what I was looking for right here. Bipartisan, but both guys share a common interest. These are the sponsors of the Democrat and Republican bipartisanship. the bipartisan condemnation of Candace Owens. So this is why I, say that Candace Owens is, or that Congress is the most hated institution in America. But let me let Candace do some explaining here real quick. Congress targets Candace Owens with bipartisan resolution to censor her. Both sponsors, Lawler and Gottheimer, each pocketed over $1 million from our favorite lobby. Let's listen to Candace here.
She wasn't the only one, right? We also had congressmen in the House presenting a bipartisan resolution name-checking me. This is the headline in the Times of Israel. Headline, literally April 29th. I couldn't believe this. The U.S. House is considering a resolution condemning Hasan Piker. I've never spoken to that person in my entire life. And Semitism. Who's bringing this forward? Okay, we've got Reps Mike Lauer and Josh Gottheimer. And it's a bipartisan bill to denounce anti-Semitic hate-filled rhetoric. Though far-left Piker says that the move is making anti-Semitism worse. That is our subheading here. The resolution begins by condemning anti-Semitic hate-filled rhetoric and content that is disseminated to prominent online personalities, blah, blah, blah. It tells us that whereas the rise of digital media platforms has enabled individuals with large audiences to disseminate disinformation, commentary, and political viewpoints to millions of viewers worldwide, such influence carries a heightened responsibility to avoid rhetoric that promotes hatred, violence, or discrimination against any group, including Jewish individuals and communities. All on the same day. Everyone is just suddenly sitting.
Much like I said earlier, just quick pause here. Again, this is a sign of desperation that they're losing control of being able to shape the narrative.
Signaling that speech is violence. Speech is now violence. They name check me and says, whereas Candace Owens has employed rhetoric that has included conspiracy theories, accusing Israel of controlling the United States government. By the way, ironically, these two people, both of them who brought this forward, take more than $1 million from AIPAC. Governments promoting false claims that Jews are taught by ancient religious texts to hate non-Jews and casting doubt on the truth of Holocaust survivors. I mean, this goes on and on. Of course, I can't defend myself. They can just put whatever they want. It's a resolution. She made the anti-Semitic claim that the United States is controlled by satanic pedophiles who work for Israel. Anti-Semitic claim, okay? Satanic pedophiles working for Israel. We're talking about Epstein and everyone who has defended the Epstein class, okay? That is not explicitly Jewish. In fact, I have been name-checking Christian Zionist pastor after Christian Zionist pastor. So do not put this on, this means you're talking about all Jews, okay? When Donald Trump said, what, are we still talking about Jeffrey Epstein? That is when he lost me entirely. To my knowledge, President Trump is not Jewish. That pedophilia is satanic. That a satanic pedophile like Jeffrey Epstein worked for Israel. This is abundantly true. This is not a conspiracy. The fact.
She's right. Let me jump up here.
Me when I'm sick, then Donald Trump. Does that now mean that if an act of violence happens, every time it happens, I get to now say that this is Trump's fault? And again, like I said, it's being echoed everywhere. Melania Trump, she tweeted. And
Raised rhetoric about the president.
Okay, listen to this.
Crazy things. Everyone who has a voice and a platform across this country, whether you're on television, a podcast host, people listen. And when you have mentally disturbed individuals across the country who are listening to this crazed rhetoric about the president day after day after day, it inspires them to do crazy things.
Laura Loomer is his top advisor. Like, it's so crazy that they really come out here and they say this unflinchingly after the things that come out of Trump's Truth Social posts. Who is smearing and calling people names and dehumanizing people more, posting photos of me when I'm sick than Donald Trump? Does that now mean that if an act of violence happens, every time it happens, I get to now say that this is Trump's fault? And again, like I said, it's being echoed everywhere. Melania Trump, she tweeted and said this about Jimmy Kimmel. Jimmy Kimmel's joke that happened before the shooting, that it was hateful and violent rhetoric intended to divide our country. Meanwhile, Caroline Levitt is talking left versus right. Is that not divisive? His monologue about my family is not comedy. His words are corrosive and deepens the political sickness within America. Does she know who she's married to? Maybe she doesn't. Might not know. People like Kimmel shouldn't have the opportunity to enter our homes each evening to spread hate. This is laying the ground, ladies and gentlemen, for speech laws. They shouldn't have the opportunity. She's pretending it's about Jimmy Kimmel. You start with Jimmy Kimmel. If we don't defend Jimmy Kimmel, which makes me physically sick, I don't want to defend Jimmy Kimmel, but I know how it goes. You start outward, you pretend it's legitimate. Trump survives it's assassination. We have to quick in the chaos. We have to just get these speech laws passed. And then they come inward. And they come inward. And they come inward. And then it's like grandma tweeted that this person was ugly. And suddenly you've got people knocking on your door.
That is it. That is the truth.
You disgust me. Okay.
So I think more than anything, the Republicans ran against this very thing, right? Trans, safe spaces, all these like words are violence, you can't say the F word or the R word type stuff. The Republicans ran against this, and now that they're in power, they're using the same exact tactics that the Democrats use, which to me is absolute proof that it's not about hurting people's feelings. It's not about the kids. It's about controlling the narrative. Now that they have power, they want to control the narratives just as bad as the Democrats did, because the narrative is what gives you power. As I said, the United States, we might have lost a lot of wars, as far as militarily goes, but we goddamn won the world as far as propaganda goes. We are the best at controlling the narrative. Well, in addition to being condemned by Congress, they're doing everything they can to shut Candace up. So she's also being sued. And I believe I already showed you some of this, but the bottom line right here, Candace echoing the late Charlie Kirk's own words, hate speech does not exist legally in America because all speech is protected. And I have the wrong link here. So anyway, there's a lawsuit that has been filed against Candace Owens. So let's read this real quick. The lawyer suing Candace Owens is Ben Shapiro's brother-in-law at Dillon Law Group, who are also working on a retainer for a registered foreign agent for Israel. Jacob William Roth, married to Ben Shapiro's sister Abigail since 2018, associate at Dillon Law Group, Heritage Foundation alum, specifically litigating anti-Semitic and anti-Israeli discrimination. Now, stack what else his firm is doing. Dillon Law Group, led by Harmeet Dillon, currently DOJ Civil Rights AAG and rumored AG nominee. The same firm appears on page 14 of FARA registration as a legal counsel for Show by Faith Works LLC, the registered foreign agent of Israel's Ministry of Foreign Affairs. So Candace is being sued by people that clearly want to stop her from saying the things that she's saying. A foreign agent of Israel pays Dillon Law for FARA compliance. Ben Shapiro's brother-in-law works at Dillon Law. Ben Shapiro's brother-in-law is suing Candace Owens for criticism of our friends in the Middle East. Same family, same firm, same fight. 2 years after Ben Shapiro fired Candace Owens from the Daily Wire for criticizing our good friends in the Middle East, his brother-in-law is co-counsel on the federal lawsuit against her. And it looks like Baron Coleman and those guys did a full through on this. Here's all the receipts so you can see them. So that's where we're at in America. They will stop at nothing to silence Candace Owens. And one of the things you have to love about her is that she's just relentless. Whether you agree with everything she says or not, she's got that spunk, she's got that fire, and she ain't going to stop saying what she wants to say. Kanye way ahead of the curve again with his support of Candace Owens back in the day, because she's really emerged as one of the, best political commentators, I would say, out there today. So we are going to close out today with something funny that I believe I may have shown this before. But, it's Ryan Long at this recent Trump protest, I believe. And he asked this guy, which Democratic candidate has nicer titties? And the ensuing hilarity is the way we're going to end the show today, because these are the type of people who still remain in the Democratic Party. And I feel bad for them. But I would encourage them, because a lot of them are granola hippie type people, vote third party. Please vote third party. Do not vote for either one of these terrible pro-war, completely bought parties if you vote in the next election cycle. In the meantime, I'm going to focus on just what I can control. I'm going to keep doing this show. Thank you for joining me today and listening to me stand on my soapbox. I very much appreciate you all. I'm continuing to grow and flourish. And hit me in the comments if I got anything wrong or if you have anything to say, and we will see you next week. In the meantime, here is the closer, Ryan Long, who has nicer titties. We'll see you next time, guys.
Who do you think has a nicer set of jugs, Elizabeth Warren or Kamala Harris?
I'll go with the white chick.
Do you go with the white titties? Why is it that you take the white gazumbas over the black titties?
Her ideology is not breast-like.
I actually thought I entered a time warp and went back 100 years because I could not believe somebody was asking this question.
What question?
Yeah, you said, who's got the nicer titties, Elizabeth Warren or Kamala Harris?
What did you think on the answer to that question?
I don't have an answer to that question.
You had to pick between the two sets of gazumbas.
By the question. I know that mental illness can come in pairs.
Of titties or?
Phenomena.
What were you saying about a pair?
Like that you guys are paired together in this absurd. I'm an anti-porn activist, as a matter of fact, but you're not going to get an interview from me about the subject because I want.
What's your favorite anti-porn? Is it people's ants?
Your mother would be very ashamed.